Today, we're taking a pretty fascinating journey into the absolute extremes of the English language. This is your comprehensive field guide to mastering English superlatives. All right, Section 1, Defining Superlative Extremes. Before we can build one, we really need to understand what it actually represents. We use superlatives to compare three or more people, places, animals, or things. Basically, a superlative tells us that someone or something has the absolute highest or lowest quality in a whole group. And here is our golden formula. The plus the superlative adjective plus the noun. Take Mount Everest, for instance. Mount Everest is the highest mountain in the world. Or think about the cheetah. Cheetahs are the fastest land animals. Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system, and Antarctica is the least populated continent. In every single one of these cases, we're pointing to the absolute limit. The core syllable rules. Now that we have the formula, we have to choose the right path for our adjectives. When you're looking at a basic adjective, you essentially have two main pathways to form a superlative. Pathway 1 is adding est. This gives us words like the tallest, the fastest, the smallest. Then there's pathway 2, which is using the most. This creates phrases like the most interesting or the most beautiful. So what does this all mean? How do we actually know which one to use? Well, let's figure it out. So the crucial point here is counting the syllables or the beats in a word. Rule 1 covers one-syllable adjectives. If an adjective has just one syllable, one beat, we usually just add est. So words like tall and fast simply become the tallest and the fastest. Old transforms to the oldest, and small to the smallest. Think about it like this. The giraffe is the tallest animal. Blue whales are the largest animals on Earth. And Antarctica is the coldest continent. One quick beat, just add est. But what happens when the word is a lot longer? That brings us to Rule 2, for three or more syllables. If an adjective has three or more syllables, we use the most. So beautiful becomes the most beautiful. Interesting becomes the most interesting. The same goes for dangerous, comfortable, and expensive. You just place the most right in front of it. For example, Paris is one of the most beautiful cities. Sharks are among the most dangerous sea animals. And this is the most interesting museum in town. A quick warning here, though, never say beautifulest or interestingest. It is a super common trap, but absolutely incorrect. So now you know exactly how to avoid it. Spelling and tricky adjectives. Because English always has a little nuance, right? We have to look at the tricky middle ground of two-syllable adjectives. You usually use est for adjectives ending in y, ow, and le. So happy becomes happiest, busy becomes busiest, narrow becomes narrowest, and simple is simplest. But for most other two-syllable words, you'll usually use the most. Famous becomes the most famous. Careful becomes the most careful. And boring is the most boring. You might be wondering why English does this. Well, it's actually about flow. English speakers choose the form that sounds natural and is easy to pronounce. Happiest rolls right off the tongue, right? While modernist just sounds kind of harsh and clunky. Let's move on and see how this builds into our spelling mechanics. When you use that est pathway, you can't always just slap the letters on the end. We've got four main modifications here. Number 1 is standard addition. You just add est. Cold plus est is coldest. Fast plus est is fastest. Number 2 is the silent e. If the adjective already ends in e, you just add est. Large becomes largest. Nice becomes nicest. Simple enough? Number 3 is the double consonant. For a short vowel plus a consonant, you double that final consonant. Big gets an extra G to become biggest. Hot gets an extra T to become hottest. And finally, number 4 is the ye swap. Change the Y to an I, then add est. Happy becomes happiest. And busy becomes busiest. Next up, inverse and irregular forms. Let's shift our focus to the opposite end of the spectrum. Inverse extremes, using the least. We use the least to talk about the absolute lowest degree of equality. The formula is literally just the least plus the adjective. Just picture a thermometer dropping all the way down to the lowest possible degree. That is exactly what we're doing here. For example, you might say, "This road is the least dangerous," or "Winter is the least popular season in this city." Or maybe, "My sister is the least patient person in our family." Looking at a planetary scale, Mercury is the least massive planet. It's the exact inverse of our previous rules. The opposite of the most expensive is the least expensive. The most dangerous becomes the least dangerous. And the most interesting flips to the least interesting. And of course, now we arrive at the rule breakers, the irregular superlatives. These words just completely refuse to follow our standard syllable rules. Looking at our exceptions log, we see that good actually becomes the best. Bad becomes the worst. Far turns into the farthest or the furthest. Much or many becomes the most. And little becomes the least. So in everyday context, you'd say, "This is the best restaurant," or "That was the worst game." Water is the most important resource. And Antarctica has the least rainfall. There's no trick here. You honestly just have to memorize these rule breakers. All right, let's synthesize everything we've just learned. Here is your master reference guide. Remember, you use est for one syllable and those specific two-syllable words. You use the most for longer words and the least for the lowest degree. And of course, keep an eye out for those tricky irregular forms. The best tip to remember here is that if you're ever not sure about a two-syllable adjective, ask yourself, which form sounds more natural? English often defaults to the form that is just easier to pronounce. Let's put all of that to the test with our Around the World challenge. I'm going to read out a few of these prompts exactly as they're written. Over in North America, we have, "Gold is one of the blank metals," and the root word is valuable. Down in the Atlantic, sharks are among the blank sea animals, with the root word dangerous. And up by Europe, Venus is one of the blank planets, using the root word hot. So, take a second. Can you correctly fill in all the blanks using the rules we just learned together? Think about it. What is the superlative for fast? What about valuable? What about large or cold? Well, if you said the fastest, the most valuable, the largest, and the coldest, you absolutely nailed it. Great job tackling superlatives today. Just remember, mastering these rules does take a bit of time, so keep practicing. Pay attention to how native speakers use these forms when you're out there reading or listening. Keep learning, keep practicing, and we'll catch you next time on The Explainer.